So when there's the buttons placed like this, you have to first run this code first before adding the background images. You have to first run this code before, because if there are some errors, we need to resolve those things. So since there's a red mark in here, it shows that there's some kind of a issue. So we have to run this and see, and we have to see whether there are some errors in this file. So right. So it shows no errors at the moment. So we will be able to see the app in here, but there are some problems in the outer appearance of the app, right? So in here, we will be able to see the misplacement of the apps, the views, right? The views, the button views and the text views. They are not placed in the correct position. So we need to adjust or we need to define the correct constraints for these views. So in order to do that, we need to click on all these elements and we need to set the margins correctly. So in here you can see there's a red underline on these constraints. Which means that the constraints are not correctly defined for these elements. We need to define the constraints, which means that we need to define like what is the exact location of this view. So we need to define what is the exact location of this view with respect to the corners of the screen, or with respect to one or two corners of the screen. So once we have correctly defined the constraints, the app knows like what is the exact position of the element, and that app is able to correctly locate it. So in order to give the gaps, we can click on these plus signs under the layout constraint widget. So the constraint widget allows us to give the gaps between the element and the margin of the screen. So in here, it automatically gets the gap between the top margin and the element. Likewise, we can give the gaps to this element. So we can give the gaps, and then afterwards we can define the gaps or the constraints of this element with respect to the other elements. So we can select this element and we can define the gap between the first top element and the second element that we are considering now. So we can directly automatically define the constraints by using these plus signs. We can define the exact location of the view. Once the constraint errors are removed, then there's no underlining red color in here, which means that now we are able to have no error in this design. When we go to this element, for that also we need to define the gaps, and we can define the gaps for this app. Again, I will define the gaps, so I can define the gaps appropriately in order for the software Android Studio to know at which location these elements are. So once all that constraint measurements for each of these elements are defined, can run this and I can see whether there's an error appearing somewhere in the layout files anywhere. I can see. So if there's no error, then there's yellow color in here, so there's no error now. So now I can see the buttons correctly placed in these correct positions. Now I know that I have correctly placed the constraints or have given the correct constraints for these elements. So now I can see them in the correct position that I have earlier defined them on. After that point, I can also import the background image as I mentioned before. So in order for me to import the background image, I can pick and drop an image in here as I prefer. So I can bring an image that I prefer. So that image should be compatible with the size of the screen. So after I have the file in the desktop or somewhere in the device, I can drop it into this drawable file. So I can drop it and I can click refactor. Then I have the image in here. So I can so after I have this image in here, I can call this using the code for the styling of the app. So in here I can call this background, right? So I can call this. So I can call this before this command in here. So now I think I can see there's no error. So I can give the command before this tool context main dot file, so that now there's no error for that. So I will run this and then I will see whether my image, background image is added. Can turn it off and turn on. So now I can see the background image that I wanted is getting added in here. So if I want, I can adjust the color fonts, the color of the text so that they're more visible. I can adjust those things as suitable. As of now, this is how it looks like. So now I want to make the functions of these buttons. So I want to create the functions for these buttons. And to do that, I will go to the main activity file. And in the main activity file, I can define the logic of these buttons. The first thing what we need to do is we need to define each of the variables that we are using in the text in the user interface. So all the variables that we are going to use in this in this I mean in this function, we need to define first. So I will first define the two buttons. So in order for me to define the variable, I will use a type called value of the variable. So in here, I will name my button as I can give any name to my button in here. So it could be um, just something I prefer. So I can give button one, right? Button underscore one. And then I can give uh, give the type of that button. So the type of that button is button. So it is the Android widget that I'm using. So if I'm using the Android built-in libraries, I need to define those built-in libraries in here. If I'm using the button library, I need to define it in the import Android widget button. So if I mention here, then I can easily access the button features. Then I can go to the command find view by ID, and by giving that command, I can find a view. I can access a view using their ID. So ID of the button I have defined as a button. Can't remember. So I need to go here. The buttons IDs I have not defined correctly. So I need to define those button IDs, and I can then easily identify each of the buttons separately. So in here, I will give the ID for the buttons as BB button one. Sorry, BB button one. And then I will put the refactor in there. And here I will put the ID for the BB button two. And then I will refactor there. And then I'm now able to go and see the code. So I can see some changes have happened to the ID of the buttons in the code. And then I go back to the logic, and then I can see that in this here, I have to give the ID of the button. So ID of the button that I'm trying to access first is the BV button 1. Then I can access that by specifying the ID here. So this is how it goes. There's some error. So BV button 1, it should be the same ID as I have defined here. So I need to first, I will try to comment this. I will run the rest of the code, the XML code, and I will try to get all the errors out of that code. After that, I will be able to then define the ID in the code in here. So in here, I think I will be able to access it without any error, since the system takes these IDs, updated IDs, as valid IDs. Then I can define the same thing for the button number 2. And here I can define the button BB button number 2. And then thirdly, I can define third type of the third type of variable I want, which I call as maybe text, custom text, I will say custom text. So the custom text will be of type text view, text view, text view. So the text view element is TV text. So now I think I have defined the variables correctly. I can run this and see whether there's some error. There's some error, then I cannot proceed forward. Afterwards, I can define the function of my logic. So I need to define the function of my logic. So what I want to do is, like, if I press the button 1, I want the text to change to the value you clicked button 1. So I will define the function using the available I will define the function like this: button 1 set on click listener. So this is a available command in the Kotlin. So you can just directly use this, which means that once you click this button, what should happen? So once you click this button, the text view or the custom text should change to a value that we want. So the text of this should change to you clicked button 1. So should be you clicked button 1, and then same thing should happen for the second one. So second one should be you click button 2. So likewise, we can define the two functions for the two buttons. So now we can run this. And the output should appear in the screen. So once I click on this button, it shows you clicked button 1. The second one, once I click, it shows you clicked button 2. So the colors of these buttons and the these text views can be changed. In the design, you can go to this. So okay. So this text should be placed in that specific location such that it comes to the middle of this screen. So that correct attribute should be selected, and you can get it centered into the screen. There are some errors available. You need to fix those things first. So basically our function is happening. So after that, I think we can do other additions to this code as well. If you want to, for example, if you want to we want to change the text back to the original text, we can add a line where we change the custom text after a certain delay. We change the value of the custom text to again to the normal original image, or back to hello there. We can give the amount of time of delay as 1000, which equals to 1 second. So we have to use this syntax. Same thing we can use for the second one also. Back to hello there, number 2. So once I run this, I can get the I can see that after I click button 1, it went back to hello there 1 in the screen. And in this as well, I can see it turned back to the original message. Okay, so I tried to get this text view again. So when we try to center this this view in the screen, we need to now currently we have a problem where this text is not getting aligned with the rest of the screen. So when we run this, when we run this in our initial state, we can see that currently in our screen that this is not getting aligned. This feature is not, this text is not getting aligned in the center of the screen. So in order to fix this, what we need to do is that we need to decide the constraints on of this view properly on all the sides of this view. So we need to give the constraints on all the sides of the view properly, and then we will be able to get the correct, I mean, we will be able to get this centered properly into the middle of the screen. So in order to do that, we can go here. We can define the gaps of the view with the margins using this constraint widget. We can give the values to the whatever the what distance gap between the top view and this view by clicking the plus sign. So we can give 40, 141, and on the other side 142, and the bottom side 97. So now the gaps or the gaps between each of these elements or each of the other elements and this specific element hello there is defined. So now we have the gaps between the screen margins and this element properly defined. So we have all these 4 distance gaps correctly defined. Then we can actually run this and see whether our changes have been reflected there. So we'll be able to run this. So in here, now you can see we are having it exactly at the center of the screen. And we also can see the change of the text back to the back to hello there 1. And once we click here, it is back to hello there 2. So likewise, we can get the functioning as we want um, in this app. So that's all with regard to this app development. So we will do some more advanced activities in the coming lectures. So basically what I wanted to emphasize is that this code that is used in this app development is written using Kotlin language. The Kotlin language is something that we need to know in order to develop the logic that is required to for this function to happen. So we need to define the variables first, and then we need to define the functions. So in order for us to understand how these variables are defined and how the functions are defined, then we need to know the Kotlin language. So the Kotlin language basics is something we are going to learn next. So the Kotlin language basics, can be accessed through the documentation related to Kotlin. Apart from that, I also uploaded a file in the LMS for you to access the Kotlin basics commands. And those commands must be run in this Android Studio, and you can run in this Android Studio or any other like IDE, and you can test out its outputs. So I will discuss about the Kotlin basics in the next class. So thank you so much. Right, I will end the lecture now. Thank you.